Next record is, this is a weird one in a way. This is the Carly Rae Jepsen, a US plaque for 1 million copies sold of the single I Really Like You, which is right there. This is a tough one to talk about for me in a way because for two reasons. One, it's a bit emotional. Two, I've signed all sorts of non disclosure agreements, but Carly and I parted ways management wise. We just put out another record, the disco. Got it. Thank you. So we just put that out. Anyways, the point is, here we are all these years later, still putting out Carly Rae Jepsen records. But as a manager, my tenure started before the album Tug of War and ended after the Call Me Maybe cycle. Again, without getting into the details because I really can't. It was not the most pleasant period of my life. This was the first song that was released after I was no longer her manager. It's funny. I remember Harley sent me a note, like an email, or maybe she called me and said, "Hey, I would really love to hear what you think of the album." And I was like, "Of course." And she sent me the album and she sort of identified I Really Like You as the first single. And I wrote her a note back and said, "Listen, I love this album." And that's the Emotion album. I said, "I love this album. Love it. You've made a beautiful, very adult, I felt, record." I think I've mentioned this before in the podcast, but one thing that Carly and I talked about from time to time was the artist Carly Simon from the 70s. Because I remember I used to say, like, man, that's like the dream career because she was writing very adult songs, Carly Simon. You're So Vain, Anticipation, etc. But they were on top 40 radio. And to me, I just thought that was cool. Like you could be a top 40 artist, but you could be writing mature, intellectual music. Um, and the reason I signed Carly when I did was what a great writer she is. Like that was really what I was motivated by when I signed her. And I remember telling her in the email, like, I love the album. The only song I don't really like is this song. It was the one song I didn't like. And I think I said something to the effect of like, you've made this wonderfully adult album. And then the first single you're putting out is this kind of juvenile, I really, 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 I just, listen, again, art's personal. For whatever reason, that song just doesn't do it for me. And I know one of the co-writers, Jay Cash, I remember having an interesting conversation with him about it as well. But and because I was sort of licking my wounds a little bit and kind of having hurt feelings about not being manager anymore. And, Scooter Braun was the manager, at least at that point. And he was going in, being interviewed in Billboard and other magazines. And, this single's going to be bigger than Call Me Maybe. And I remember like, it was hard. It was a hard period of time to sort of have to see that in the press. And so when the song came out and it did okay, but it didn't really do that great. Like in some weird way, it was satisfying. Not because I mean, listen, it came out on my label, so I wanted it to do well. But there was that small part of me, if I'm really honest about it, that was like, okay, not as big as Call Me Maybe, ha ha ha. But the flip side of that too is I also think that's a much better album than Kiss, which was the album, I was managing her for that has Call Me Maybe. So Kiss has Call Me Maybe, which alone makes it worth the price of admission. But I think Emotion is a much better album, start to finish. It was satisfying because right from the day I started managing Carly, I really was pushing that side of her. Like, for some reason, this business sometimes doesn't take women as seriously as men in terms of writers. It's harder for a female writer to get respect than it is for a male writer to get respect. And maybe that's the same in most aspects of life in Western society. I don't know. But I remember having to have that fight a lot at Interscope and with Scooter Because right away they were all like, "Oh, we're going to hook her up with this writer. We're going to hook her up with that writer." They were, I remember Jimmy Iovine like sent me a song he wanted her to record, and it's difficult when you're in those situations because you're like, "Well, why the fuck did you sign her? I thought you signed her because you saw the same talent that I saw. Like this person's an incredible writer. Why is your first move to get other people to write songs for her?" But I'd experienced that many times. I experienced that with Lilix, who signed to Maverick. Like, you get a band signed to a major label, and then the first thing they want to do is bring in other writers, which is like, I don't get it. Like, why did you sign this artist if you didn't believe in their ability to write songs? So we had to sort of a little bit battle that. I don't even know how much Carly was aware of that. I think she was aware of that, but yeah, it was a real drag to be honest at first. But I think with Emotion, she really hit her stride. Um, and it's interesting because she went from Call Me Maybe, which was like biggest pop song of the year and arguably the biggest pop song of the last 25 years, and then comes out with this very adult record. And when I Really Like You didn't like completely blow up, there seemed to be a transition from her being pushed as a pop artist to her being pushed as a almost like a pitchfork artist, like an artist who was cool as opposed to just a pop artist. And I think that was a smart move. I mean, the critics love that record. It made a lot of, top 5 albums of the year lists that year. And I was thrilled. Like, I'm very proud that we put that record out. I'm very proud of my role in her career. And, it almost felt like a weird vindication that she then was really starting to be recognized as a writer and as an artist and not just as a pop tart. So that I thought was pretty cool too. So mixed feelings about the album or about the song. It evokes kind of mixed. There's the sadness of some personal stuff that we went through and business stuff we went through. But then there's the happiness that we got through it and the happiness that that record, that album was so important. And yeah, that's kind of what I got to say. Don't
You
sue
think?
me, Carly. I don't think don't think I've breached any did I say anything negative? I don't know.
No, it was
No.
pretty. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things I was gonna ask about, maybe we can touch on now is, I presume, do you want to tell us everything you can, maybe about what happened, the personal stuff that happened, of like, is there any public reason you could say of why you were no longer her manager at that point or anything?
That's tough. And I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't 100% know.
Okay,
I mean, I don't even 100% know. Um, I think I'm gonna leave that one alone.
sure. Okay, some of the reaction to it, maybe part of the reason it didn't blow up. A lot of people say it felt like just kind of a repeat in a way of Call Me
Of
Maybe, in terms of leaning into certain things that helped that song be so successful.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought it was a little cutesy and a little like I mean, again, I don't hate it. I just didn't really like it, and I felt she was better than that song. And I didn't like the video either. There's a video with Tom Hanks,
Yeah, yeah.
which you would think, oh well, I don't know, and I wasn't there, but he looks like he's kind of mailing it in. Like he doesn't really. That's just my opinion. Again, I wasn't there.
That was actually, I think, from what I can see online,
Other people say that.
it's a lot of people seem to think the video was actually stronger than the song, and that a lot of people remember it
That's
more for the
interesting.
video than
Well,
I
Tom
would.
Hanks is a huge star. He's a
Yeah,
worldwide star, and him
pretty.
and Scooter are friends. I think. I think that's how they got him. And I remember when I heard like, "Hey, Tom Hanks is going to be in a video." I mean, don't forget this is stuff that 604 owns as well.
Yeah,
I was excited. I'm like, "Holy shit! I'm going to have a video with Tom Hanks."
yeah.
And I remember myself feeling a bit disappointed.
Okay.
It just didn't do it for me as a video. Again, it's art. It's
That's
everybody has a
subjective. Yeah.
different reaction. And if people online are saying they love it, great. I love that. But didn't really do it for me. And
Um,
there are videos from that album I love. That isn't one of them.
you say then there's obviously a move to kind of more. Did you use the phrase adult records? If people are saying there's a bit of a repeat or whatever, do you think that maybe her songwriting was maybe gonna go a different course if it wasn't for Call Me Maybe having the success, and she kind of had to lean into?
It's such a good question, and it's a hard one to answer because if you go back to Tug of War, which is her first album, which I highly recommend. It's a really, really good album, and it's the record that made her a celebrity in Canada. Didn't really break out of Canada, but it had 2 or 3 hits in Canada. And, like, go look at the video, for example, of, the song "Tug of War," which is one of my favorite videos that our company ever made. It's very adult. That whole album's very adult. It's Carly likes to write about relationships. She's very good at dissecting the dynamics of male female relationships. And I almost feel like Kiss, the second album, the major label debut, got away from that. And I think that might in part be because of the producer she worked with. Um, Tug of War was made locally, mostly with a producer named Ryan Stewart, and one song with Josh Ramsey, Sour Candy. Like, go back and look at those videos. Like, go look at the video for Sour Candy, for example, or Tug of War, or Bucket from that album. I love those videos. I love all three of those videos. They're great. And there was something very adult about those as well. I feel like she got away from that a bit on Kiss. I don't know why. It might have just been the producer she worked with. Then I think the choice of producers kind of changed with the third record. And I think she worked with producers who were probably just more appropriate for where she was at. It felt more natural than Kiss, at least to me. She sounds more, what's the expression? Comfortable in her own skin on Emotion than she did on Kiss. She might disagree. I don't know. That's just my opinion.
You think the song would have done better in the TikTok era?
TikTok is still a mystery to me, and I have a TikTok account that does fairly well, but it's just clips from the podcast. Once in a while, I'll go on there and have a little rant about something. In fact, I get a lot of people asking me to start doing that again. I don't know why I stopped. I think I don't know, felt too weird sitting in my office at 2 a.m. in the dark ranting about whatever the hell. But I don't know the answer to that. Don't know.